Now we're going to move over from Cheektowaga to Lancaster. So we have two individuals here who are running for the town council in Lancaster. Another very important town, another very important race, another situation where conservative Republicans have been able to take over the leadership of the town, and we need to maintain that. And so we have two gentlemen here today that you need to search out, go on their Facebook page, look at what their background is, look at what they stand for, and then hopefully go and vote for these two individuals. Mark, we're going to start with you, Mark Burkhardt. Tell us again a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Ralph, for having me on. Background, I've been in medicine I've been a nurse for over 35 years. I also am a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve for 15 years.
Wow, that's it. Look, we appreciate your service. Everybody, we need people like you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Go ahead.
I was just to say, background, married my wife's a nurse as well, with 3 daughters who are in various parts of the medical field as well.
Oh, that's terrific. So the medical field is a public service field. And so in your everyday job, you're doing public service. You're out there helping individuals.
That is correct.
Well, and that's what's needed in government, people with public service in mind. So how did you get into the politics part of it? Most people are afraid of politics. They think we're all bad because we're involved in politics. There certainly are a lot of good people, though, that are willing to do public service. How did you get involved?
It started when I was young. I grew up in Cheektowaga, so I was pulled into politics way back when. One of my best friends growing up and to this day worked for Jack Quinn in Washington. So I've been around politics pretty much all my life, and when the opportunity came up and I was asked to serve Lancaster, it was a great opportunity because there was many things that I saw that was happening in Lancaster. Example, cookie-cutter contracts, where Lancaster easements were being sold to developers to sandwich in another house. The people who owned adjacent property to these easements weren't told that it was up for sale. So it would go into the paper, small print, so it was public. Only certain individuals knew that it was for sale. So they would buy it, say $5,000, sell it to the developer for $25,000.
Wow.
And then a house was able to be put on. And that happened right behind our house.
Wow. So Lancaster, you have at least the advantage of a town that has growth potential. So to me, unlike Cheektowaga or my town of West Seneca, which is pretty well developed and not a lot of room for growth, you do have the room for growth there in Lancaster.
We absolutely do. We are for smart growth.
That's exactly right, smart growth.
So that's why we put in a year moratorium on building. We did, and I wholeheartedly supported it, another 3 months. We also expanded the lot sizes from 80 to 100. And, that gave us time to look at zoning, looked at where we could put specific developments, looked at commercial, what we could do with that as well, and maybe change some of the zoning of properties that were changed from agricultural to for private back to agricultural, so that we could look at Lancaster, expand it, but do it smartly for everyone there for the future.
So you have a great village in Lancaster. I mean, it's just everybody tries to imitate what you have there because it really is set up well. And it's walkable. We don't have that in most situations.
Correct. Yes, the village has done a fabulous job on building up the infrastructure, making it walkable. With the town and the village, we've had several movies that have been made in Lancaster now because of it. And it's really good. And we try to work very closely with the village, with their expansion and what we can bring to the table as well.
So what do you see as the need for Lancaster going forward? So you've been on the board now.
I have been on the board.
For 4 years, right?
For 4 years now. Well, the need we saw was for our children, and we put in millions of dollars into Westwood Park. We're looking at a splash pad to put in there as well. Walden Ponds, we're putting in a brand new turf field that can be used by lacrosse, soccer, football, baseball. So we are looking on that end to what can we bring for the youth into Lancaster as well, and as usual, equipment, because our highway, I work closely with them, John Pilato, Michelle Barbaro, to get the equipment that is needed. We know that these storms that we've been getting are not going away. In my opinion, I think they're going to get worse, and we're going to at least get hit once a year. And by working with them,
you're talking about the winter storms, the snowstorms.
The snowstorms itself. Our men and women of the highway in every department in Lancaster that worked together cleared out the snow. We were the first town that was reopened. Cheektowaga had to pay $1 million to a subcontractor to remove their snow. That's $1 million that cannot be used, whether it's in the parks or any of our infrastructure or equipment in the town. And our men and women were able to do that and save us at least $1 million, not putting it into subcontractors. So that in itself, working, that's why I want to stay too, is to sustain that. Our first responders were able to get out. Parents, the kids are able to get home. So I take a lot of pride with that.
So in terms of zoning, in terms of the zoning code, you have a program in place to modify the code or update the code?
We have in certain areas. Zoning, one thing that people don't realize with zoning is when you get on the board, you don't realize that you can have carte blanche and say, we don't want this. I'll give you an example. Dollar General wanted to go on Walden. The zoning was correct. However, the variances that were needed for it were about 11. It did not really fit within that structure and that area, and we were able to get rid of Dollar General and not have them build there. Other situations, if you have zoning and it's correct, and there's no variances or very little, there's little that we can do as a board to stop that. And even though we don't want it, it's a very fine line, but we look at everything that we can do if the public comes to us and what we can do within that project to stop that project. But there is a fine line on that.
So what type of growth are you looking for?
We're looking for both residential and we are looking for commercial, but within the right environments and what is needed within those areas. I'll bring it up. The Lucas James project on Broadway and Bowen. There was a lot of people opposed to it. It was Desiderios used to own it. It burned down, and it was just gravel and weeds. And I know that project had a lot of pushback on it. However, today, it is a beautiful building on that corner. It has Tim Hortons. I know a lot of people didn't want that, but they have one-on-one physical therapy where people don't have to travel in farther into Lancaster or whatnot to get physical therapy. They have a wellness center there. They have apartments. And it's a beautiful building that actually enhances that area itself. So those are the type of projects that we're looking for to enhance Lancaster.
So residential development, I mean, today, a typical residential house for new construction is costing $400,000 and more.
Yes.
So if you have residential construction, you actually get a tax base that exceeds the tax cost of those residential houses. So are there residential developments coming in?
There are. Off of William, there's one. There's one out by Pleasant that will be going in as well. The fear with the residential right now, which is a huge problem for New York State and especially Lancaster, is the all electric homes.
That's crazy. It's totally crazy.
Supervisor Leary and myself were at a press conference with Congressman Langworthy. He is working diligently with Congress to stop Kathy Hochul from putting that in on January 1st.
It's January 1st of 26. It's only a couple months away.
Correct. We were there with all the builders. And I have a friend that just had a bill of $855 for electric alone. And you want to put in an all-electric home. What are they going to be paying? The same as their mortgage or more? The infrastructure is not there. With our cold, with our storms, what are they going to have as backup? And what's very interesting, New York State and Electric had a commercial on the radio that stated, "Go hybrid, call us." Well, aren't we hybrid now? We have electric and we have gas.
Right.
What they are doing is really a socialistic environment, stating that as a taxpayer, you have to have only electric, which is nonsense. You should be able to have both electric and gas if you want to.
Especially in Western New York, where we do have the winter that we do have the snow that we do have the situation where our winter weather, our snow can shut down electric power.
Correct. And the other, I haven't heard this talked about, but you have backup batteries. Now, we know I was a volunteer fireman for a bit in Lancaster, and the fear with these electric batteries is they're very hot. And you don't have time to get out of a vehicle. Trying to put them out is a problem. And these batteries stay inside, within your garage or possibly basement. So is the garage going to be fireproof? How much more will that be? If it's cold, extremely cold, are these batteries going to be able to power your house?
So you're talking about an all-electric type
all-electric home. Absolutely. And is it going to be heated? Because the batteries need warmth.
Right.
Because the garages get very cold. So there's a lot of issues with that. So
yeah, I totally understand.
Let me ask this question. Russ Gugino with the Conservative Committee.
Hi, Russ.
The coordination between the village and the town.
Yes.
Does that coordination also extend to zoning?
Zoning, no.
Then
well, they have the zoning.
Okay.
So we have a zoning board that encompasses. So what we try to do is we try to find individuals who, truthfully like-minded, to go on the zoning board, so that when things come up to them, they can make that decision, and it's an extension.
So the village, do they have the ability to zone something that the town doesn't want?
Within the village itself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
The village and the town are
the
separate.
The village is a separate political entity.
Yes.
And has its own boards and its own, codes.
So for purposes of coordination, for snow plowing and that kind of thing, there's a lot more coordination with the village as well as the town on those kind of things.
Correct. As long as with the county, because we do plow county roads as well.
Yes.
Within the town. But the village has their own DPW, and they plow within the village. And is there some overlapping? Absolutely.
This is where conservative talk happens. So you need to encourage your friends, your family to listen to 1270 to get really what you need to know. And especially, I'd like to think in this show where we're going to highlight people who are running for office right here in Erie County. So tell your friends, tell your family, 1270 AM, The Patriot. All right, now we're back in Lancaster with Thomas Anticola. So, Tom, you're brand new to politics, right?
I am.
So tell us about your background. I'm impressed with what you've just told me, so tell us about it.
Okay, my background, I am a born and raised Lancaster resident. I grew up there. I graduated from Lancaster High School. After that, I ended up attending Penn State University. I went to Penn State for 4 years. I graduated from there. And then I recently just retired from the New York State Police. I kind of followed in my father's footsteps. He's also a retired New York State trooper. I spent 26 years as a trooper. I started my career as a road trooper, worked all over the state, starting downstate, moving my way back to the western New York area. I finished my career as the team leader of the State Police's Special Operations Response Team, which every agency has their own acronym for their SWAT team, but that's the State Police's tactical team. And I was the Western Team Region's team leader. And that's where I finished my career.
So, look, I'm very impressed with all of that. When you become a state trooper, so your dad was a state trooper?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, look, that's an extremely honorable service, something we absolutely need, and unfortunately, something the Working Families Party and our state of New York seems to be against. That is crazy to me. I was always brought up to respect the police. If you had a problem, the police were a solution to that problem. They were to be respected. They're there for us. So I appreciate your service and your father's service. So then inside the state police, you rose to this special operations?
Yeah, everyone starts as a trooper, and the great thing about the state police agency is there's a lot of different facets of law enforcement that you can pursue. And once you're a trooper and you perform well in that duty, you have the option to try out for different units. And I ended up trying out for the Special Operations Response Team and then becoming an operator on that team for years, and then eventually rising to finish my career as the team leader of one of their regional teams. And we have 5 regional teams across the state.
And so that's like
that's the state police's full-time tactical team. It's their SWAT team. So we are involved in any kind of critical incidents, barricaded gunmen, hostage situations. We execute any high-risk warrants. We work in conjunction with the federal agencies executing warrants for wanted suspects, any searches for people that are hostile. That's what our unit specialized in.
What you learn along the way and what you have to have within you is the ability to communicate with people that don't necessarily agree with you.
Yeah, you learn about problem solving and a lot of logistics and coordinating with other agencies, which helps in liaisoning with other agencies and keeping open lines of communication and solving problems in some of the most high-stress situations.
Yeah. And so, look, I'm glad to have you involved in government. I'm glad you have our conservative endorsement. So tell us, how did you get into the politics part of it? Who drew you in? I'm glad they did, but how did it come about?
I was never really involved in politics heavily growing up or anything. I was raised in a conservative family with the conservative principles and values that this country was founded on. And never really saw myself getting involved in politics if you were to talk to a younger version of myself. But I kind of saw the way things were going and in this country and in towns, and it filters down, even though national stuff isn't necessarily town stuff, but it all filters down, and those principles kind of seem to be getting lost along the way. And I just kind of felt like more people that hold on to conservative and traditional values needed to get involved in politics to keep that going in the right direction.
So now you're running for office, for the council seat in the town of Lancaster.
Yes, now I'm running for one of the vacated town councilman seats in Lancaster.
Well, I'm certainly very proud that you have our endorsement. So what do you see in Lancaster? What do you see are the issues? What do you see that needs to be done? What do you want to accomplish?
I think the town of Lancaster has always been a great town. Obviously, I'm biased. I was raised there. I enjoy
it. It is
the town.
A great town. There's no question.
It's a growing town, and I think, like Mark had mentioned too previously, we want to keep that town growing and moving in the right direction, but doing it smartly, making sure the infrastructure is in place to support the growth that we want, and to just keep it moving in the direction that the village has made a lot of nice additions to it. It's a great area for residents to go, and I think running for office, what gets lost a lot is not, for me personally, I think a lot of people get into it for the right reason, but they represent some of maybe their own personal agendas. I really want to try to be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollars and represent the interests of the people, what they want, what the direction they want the town to go, and try to represent that in the best manner that I can.
So to me, one of the most important roles that a council person has is to keep taxes at some reasonable level.
Yeah, keeping spending at a reasonable level. You know, there's always going to be spending associated, but you have to do that in a responsible manner, and I think people appreciate that responsibility, accountability, and maybe more transparency than they usually had. That was one thing in law enforcement. We have to be accountable for everything that we do. We have to be transparent with everything we do, and what you have to do it with is integrity, because if you don't have those things, you're going to lose the respect of the public, and you'll lose the respect of the people in any facet of life if you don't apply those values.
Everything you say is exactly what we want to hear, right, Bob?
You got that right, Ralph.
Everything. Look, you sound like the perfect candidate. So have you gone door to door? I mean, how has your campaign gone here in Lancaster?
I feel like the campaign has been going fairly well. It's being new to it. It's definitely different. You know, you're not really read into a lot of the issues on the level that maybe sitting candidates are. But it's been well received in the village and the town. A lot of people have reached out, and we're kind of excited about hearing that I was dipping my toes into this proverbial pool. So we'll see how it goes. I just started going door to door recently and knocking, and it seems well received. So I feel pretty good, but like in anything, you don't want to put the cart before the horse and get too overconfident. But I like the direction it seems to be going.
Look, we need young people willing to be involved.
Ralph, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, you heard from the Cheektowaga folks the first hour, and now you're hearing from Lancaster. And, you know, I'm real proud of the Republican and the Conservatives, our partnership in producing people like this.
Exactly.
They deserve to be elected. The taxpayers in their community deserves them to be in office.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like the perfect individual for the town of Lancaster, for the residents of Erie County, and I can see that you can go far in this situation with the ethics that you do have, and that we need people like you to go far. So this is the first step, the Town of Lancaster Council. Lancaster has made the change. It's made the turn. It is a Republican town at this point, right?
That is correct.
So Mark helped to bring that about, and so now we need to continue it, and we need to, you know, make it stronger in that direction of traditional values. Unfortunately, we are very bifurcated today. That's an unfortunate situation. But again, I want to mention that when your opponents take the working families line, to me, they've stepped across the line.
Yeah,
it's not just Democrat-Republican anymore. It's internal values of individuals. And so it's whether or not you believe in traditional values or whether you believe in these very progressive values that the Working Families Party, your opponents, believe in. So we need people to hold the line in terms of spending. We need people to be fair with their employees. Certainly, your employees for the town are going to get increases as we progress. The way we fund those increases is hopefully with growth in tax base, reasonable, smart growth, and you have a town that has the ability to do that.
And I think that's the most important thing, is it is a growing town. There are always expenses associated with growth.
Sure.
But it's about making sure that those expenses are reasonable and you don't spend recklessly or foolishly. And as far as like the political landscape, you're right. It's very divisive, and some people have a tendency to stick to different party line affiliations. And I hope in this day and age that because it's so divisive, that people maybe take the time to not necessarily just look at party affiliation, but to look at the person and what they represent when you're voting, not the party line, not who they're associated with, but look at the person, what their values are, who they are as a person, and then decide who you want.
That's extremely important. Go ahead, Mark.
Tom, absolutely, you're correct. And I want to give an example of how we have done this. Diane Terranova is a Democrat.
Right.
She is, I would say, the best clerk in New York State.
She has our conservative endorsement.
Absolutely. And she is the deputy supervisor as well. And this is the best person for the job. We work together. It doesn't matter if she's Democrat, Republican, Conservative. We work as a team for the best of Lancaster, and that is a great example of how we should be moving forward, and we work together.
So Diane's been around a long time.
She has.
She's a beautiful, wonderful woman, but she's the traditional Erie County Democrat of the past. She's unfortunately not what we're getting out of Jeremy Zellner or Mark Poloncarz today.
Correct.
They are not looking for that kind of individual Democrat. They are looking for a much more progressive Democrat. So, yes, she's done an excellent job. We support her in the Conservative Party, but we need people like Tom. We need young people.
Absolutely.
We need people, because what we're getting is, the Brian Nowak that we got in Cheektowaga, who was Bernie Sanders' guy. That's unfortunately what this country is. 50-50 is being divided in that type of manner, the socialistic Democrats. So, again, when I see somebody that takes the Working Families Party, and Diane doesn't, when I see somebody that takes that Working Families Party, I'm very skeptical. And as Tom said, people need to look at the candidates, not just the party line. They need to look at the candidates. They need to look at what those candidates stand for. They need to do some investigation. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that today. People get turned off by politics. I certainly understand that. But we're a necessary part of what goes on in this world. And people like Tom, I'm so glad to see come into the picture, because I know a lot of young people who don't want to get involved.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And having Tom by my side in this campaign is great. Welcome with open arms, and I think we get back in, we can do a lot of great work moving forward, as we did before, for the future of Lancaster.
Well, look, Tom, I appreciate you being here today. I mean,
I appreciate you having me on here.
Well, so look, in terms of politics, there's always a learning curve.
For sure.
But I'm sure you'll learn quickly. You've got people like Mark to help you out, Bob to help you out. So we've got good people in both the Republican and Conservative committees in your town. The town has turned toward that Republican Conservative values. I think that's what your people want. I think that's what the constituents are looking for in your town. And I certainly hope to see that you'll be elected and be able to continue that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be successful. I'm looking forward to it. I know it's a totally new endeavor from what I've done, and don't necessarily have experience in the political landscape, but I think working for the state and being involved with that and having the opportunity to work with people all over this country, actually with law enforcement, it gave me an opportunity to really understand the dynamics of liaisoning with people, coordinating a bunch of different assets and logistics. So I think that gives me a big step up in hopefully learning quickly of how everything works in the
experience.
side of the house.
The experience you've had with the state police that you've just articulated, to me, gives you everything you absolutely need to handle that job as being a council person. I have no doubts you'll be able to handle it effectively, efficiently, and to benefit each and every resident of the town of Lancaster. I certainly expect that. So these are the two races that we have in Lancaster. Again, we need people to get out and vote, so it's very important. I appreciate both of you being here. So now we are going to move over to a legislative race. So look, Erie County has 11 legislative districts, and unfortunately, there are 7 of them filled with Democrats and only 4 with conservative Republicans. We need to have greater balance in our county legislature. So here we have a woman, Christina Coyle Lenz, who is running in the 5th legislative district. And she certainly has the ability to win this race. She has the ability to do the job. You're going to be impressed with her background, with her what she's accomplished up to now and what she wants to accomplish. So, Christina, tell us a little bit about your background, first of all.
Well, thank you, Chairman Larigo. My career is really comprised of 3 overarching chapters. The first chapter, I worked in business-to-business sales and sales management, and I sold things ranging from office supply contracts to surgical instruments. It was a really fabulous set of foundational experiences. While I was working full-time, I earned an MBA from the University at Buffalo School of Management. I transitioned into a chapter in which I was doing consulting following those years. And while I was consulting, I went back to school for what I sometimes refer to as my midlife crisis degree in creative studies. Now, that might sound frivolous, but one of the major sets of learning that I gained from that was how to actually, in a very practical way, apply all of that business training, and also how people operate in problem-solving spaces. So our previous guest, Tom, was talking about the importance of problem-solving in government. And essentially, I think at the heart of problem-solving, we have to figure out ways to work with people across differences. And working across differences is critical. And so during those years when I was consulting, that's actually what I did. I helped businesses solve thorny problems.
So you started out in sales, which means you had to deal with people and communicate, and you had to be a good communicator. Then you got an MBA. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, what's your full-time job today?
Well, while I was working as a consultant, I was also teaching part-time. And the program director that I worked for was planning to retire. And he talked to me about my future plans. And actually, I wound up taking his position. So I'm an academic program director in higher ed at a university. And I run a program that teaches leadership and innovation.
Leadership and innovation.
Yes, sir.
That's a course at the university?
It's a whole master's program, 36 credit hours.
Wow.
And think about that, Ralph. There is no leadership in the county legislature.
Hey, you know, Bob, that's exactly what I was thinking
That
about.
was a big softball, Ralph.
Something we need a great deal.
Yeah, let's talk about that. 7-4 Democrat, Republican. Who's keeping Mark Poloncarz in check?
No one.
That's exactly right.
Four out of 11,
yeah,
unfortunately.
Well, and Lindsay Larigo is doing a
Lindsay
great
Larigo
job.
is
John
at
Mills, Chris Green, they're doing a great job. But, we have an opportunity with Christina to elect another Republican, and maybe one more on top of that, and give the Republicans a majority.
Yep.
But Christina's running in Amherst and a couple districts in Cheektowaga, and Amherst right now is extremely competitive for the town board race as supervisor. And with Christina out there, the Republican conservatives together have a great ticket of 5 individuals that did not come from the political arena. They came from the private sector, education. It's a great opportunity for Democrats in Amherst to wake up and see what's been going on at the county legislative level. I mean, right now, the Democrats control, they're nothing more than a rubber stamp for Mark Poloncarz. And that's not good for Erie County. Amherst has got the same situation on the town board. It's all Democratic. And just look what happened this past Thursday. The Democratic town board rubber stamped for Mark Poloncarz, the county executive, and the Democratic-controlled county legislature went along with it, and they sold Westwood to the county for $1. And 3 of the Amherst town board members, by the way, get paychecks from Erie County. I call that a conflict of interest. We need Christina Coyle-Lenz to check Mark Poloncarz over the final 2 years of his term, and she can win.
Christina, where would you have been in that situation? Give us a little bit of the background of that situation and where you think you would have been.
Well, the background of this Westwood case, if you will, is one that has created a great deal of division in the town of Amherst. The residents want clearly to keep the green space. They did not want massive development. And when the town purchased the country club space for almost $8 million, they intended to build this really grandiose project that if it were not for a group of residents, the taxes would have gone up significantly more than the 11.4, because there was a group of incredible residents that took a very hard look at the musical fair project, which the town was considering bonding for $11 million and then leasing it to the theater company for $1 a year.
Just like Westwood.
And that would have gone over, that would have gone straight into our taxes. So where would I stand on this? I'm looking at this big picture, and as I see this, the town of Amherst essentially owns this property and is responsible now for paying back $13 million. Plus, there's
That's the cost of the land with the bond that they took to pay for the land.
Exactly.
So with the interest, it isn't the $8 million; it's over $13 million.
Exactly. And in addition to that, there's a great deal of sunk cost into the project from the town of Amherst because there was a great deal of money invested in the designs and all of the anticipated developments that they wish to include in this park. So when I saw this stop and everything became silent, little did we know the lack of transparency that led to what was being discussed behind closed doors.
And I think that's the worst part of this is there's a total lack of transparency between the town board and the residents with regard to this project.
Ralph, you're right, and that's why Dan Gagliardo yesterday filed an Article 78 to stop it. You know, the Democrats have been sitting on this empty parcel, 171 acres, for 12 years. And now here we are, 5 weeks before the election, and they, in a special session on Thursday night that the taxpayers didn't get notice on until Tuesday, they passed this resolution to hand off Westwood Country Club for $1 to the county area. You know, there's something wrong with that.
Thursday afternoon, right?
Thursday afternoon,
Not
4 o'clock.
at night, so that
What happened
people
to
could-
Monday night's regular session?
Right, so not at night where people could go to meetings.
There is an arrogance at the town board level. There's an arrogance at the county level. Read the front page of the Buffalo News today, the last paragraph, where the county executive said, "We're going forward with this project, regardless of what Dan Gagliardo and the Article 78 say."
Right.
You know, that's arrogance. And by the way, you know, why can't we wait until we get through this election cycle and when we elect Republicans to the town board, and then let, like Dan said, and our other candidates, why didn't you put it to a referendum? No, they've been negotiating this for over a year, and that includes Christina's opponent, Jean Vinyl. And by the way, what has she done? She's been on the county legislature for 6 years. I asked the residents of Amherst and the 4 districts in Cheektowaga, do you know who your county legislator
And they
is?
don't.
Have you ever heard of Jean Vinyl? You know, by the way, she opposes a lot of the things that the sheriff's trying to do, a lot of things in law enforcement. And by the way, let's talk about Maple Road, right, Christina?
Absolutely. So Maple Road is a county road, and starting Monday, there is a small project that is going to begin repair on the section between North Forest and Flint. Essentially, one of the things that is driving the issues with this is Ms. Vinyl's vote. And she voted against asking the state for more money for the improvement tax. And one of the things that she said, which I find really interesting because I live in Amherst, of course, and I drive on these roads all the time, February 6th, 2025. And this is from the Buffalo News. Is this from the Buffalo? No, I'm sorry, it's from WGRZ. And Legislator Vinyl, quote, also emphasized, in her opinion, that Erie County roads are in the best shape they have ever been.
Have you driven down Maple Road?
I've driven down many roads that I do not consider to be in the best shape that they've ever been in.
Yeah, but you know, she approved the county purchase of Westwood for $1. And the county said, it's in the story this morning, they're going to spend $9.1 million. Where's her priorities? Maple Road has been a mess for years. You know, and nothing's better, but now, five weeks before the election, you're going to see road crews out there. You know, there was money that should have been allocated to repair that road, but she didn't waste 1 second in voting to approve the transfer of Westwood to the county for $1 when she could have been using that money to repair Maple Road.
So, Christina, tell us some of her votes. You know, because I know she voted wrong on a number of things. So why don't you articulate some of what your opponent's votes were in the legislature?
Well, she has consistently voted in opposition to safety, voting against law enforcement tools and the public security measures. And I'm going to just highlight a couple of these.
Good.
She voted against extending a contract for police body camera, the contract for police, the deputy sheriffs to have their body cams. And why body cams are important is at a time when we're struggling to recruit law enforcement, these are an ultimate safety, truth device. They protect the officer as much as they do someone that the officer might be interacting with. That was one of her votes, and she stood alone with that. She voted against a program that they were trying to implement at the Galleria Mall. This program is of particular importance because if you think about Erie County and our revenue sources, we need Erie County sales tax dollars. And the last mall left standing at the present in our Erie County footprint is the Walden Galleria.
That's right.
And Walden Galleria is it's developed a reputation for having some very serious security measures. And when she voted against this program, and there have been multiple violence incidents and unrest at the mall, when she votes against this, essentially, what she's doing is sending a message to the residents that the individuals that are perpetrating the violence and the crime are more important than the potential shoppers. But the economic impact of this is something that's not even connected here. We need that sales tax revenue because that helps to fund our county services. And the Galleria Mall is a magnet for people within the area, within Erie County, of course, but we have the surrounding areas because it's a great shopping center.
Yes.
Even for the folks that come down and shop from Canada.
From Canada, right.
So those are just two examples of things within the law enforcement realm that she voted against. There is something else I would like to highlight.
Go ahead.
Legislator Vinyl voted for her own pay raise.
I was just going to get there. So she voted to increase her pay. Now, this is a part-time job, so tell us what she voted to do.
Well, basically what she did is she voted to raise her salary from $42,588 to $65,000.
From 42 to 65, she gave herself a $23,000, almost 50% raise.
Ralph, where's
Yes.
she been? Nobody knows her. Now she's going to get paid $65,000.
Well, which one of us got a 50% raise?
I'm retired, Ralph. I mean, I'm not getting that in Social Security.
That I get it, Bob. I get the problem.
There's another item pertaining to business, sales tax revenue, and our economic climate that I'd like to highlight. And that pertains specifically to her role as the chairperson for the Small Business Committee on the Erie County Legislature. Legislator Vinyl hasn't convened a meeting of this committee since October of 2024.
Again, incredible. Look,
But she wants a pay raise.